There was a time when Alara felt like she did not belong to the world she walked in. The streets of her city were always loud. People hurried past one another, chasing goals, arguing with clocks, staring into glowing screens. Yet inside her, there was only a quiet question that never left. Why am I here? She had asked herself that since childhood. As a little girl, she would sit under the old banyan tree near her grandmother's home and stare at the sky. The stars did not feel distant to her. They felt familiar, like memories she couldn't fully remember. Her grandmother once told her, "Some souls are older than their bodies." Alara never forgot that. Years passed. She grew up, found work at a small publishing house, and lived a simple life. But the feeling remained, that something inside her was waiting for a signal, waiting for a shift, waiting for someone who understood the quiet ache in her heart. That someone appeared on a rainy Thursday afternoon. His name was Orion. He walked into the publishing house carrying a manuscript tied with a blue ribbon. His eyes held the kind of stillness that made the room feel softer. When he spoke, it was gentle but certain. "I'm here to submit my book," he said. Alara looked up from her desk, and for a moment, time stretched. It wasn't dramatic. There was no thunderclap or sudden music in the air, but something subtle passed between them, a recognition. Like two travelers who had crossed lifetimes and finally met at the same station again. She smiled. "I'll make sure it reaches the editor." When their fingers briefly brushed while exchanging the manuscript, Alara felt warmth spread through her chest. Not the rush of infatuation. Not nervous excitement. Something deeper. Something ancient. Over the next few weeks, Orion returned often to discuss revisions. Each conversation felt less like small talk and more like remembering. They spoke about books at first, then about dreams, then about the strange feeling of being different. "Have you ever felt," Orion asked one evening as they walked outside after closing time, "like you're becoming someone new, but you don't know who that is yet?" Alara stopped walking. "Yes," she whispered. "Every day." Orion looked at her with understanding. "I think something is changing, not just in us, in everything." The sky above them shimmered with early evening stars. Alara felt her heart respond, not to him alone, but to the truth in his words. That night, she dreamed vividly. She stood in a field of silver light. The earth beneath her feet pulsed softly, like a living heart. A voice, calm, vast and filled with love, spoke without sound. "You are being transformed. Do not fear the becoming." When she woke, tears traced her cheeks. The next day, Orion called her. "I had a dream," he said before she could speak. She closed her eyes. "A field of light?" "Yes." They were silent for a long moment. Neither of them laughed. Neither questioned it. They simply knew. From that day forward, their connection deepened, not through grand gestures, but through shared awakening. They began meeting on weekends outside the city, hiking through forests, sitting near rivers, watching the sunrise paint the sky in gold. Nature seemed to speak more clearly around them. One afternoon, as wind moved gently through tall grass, Orion turned to her. "I don't think we met by accident." "I don't believe in accidents anymore," she replied. He smiled. There was love growing between them, steady and luminous. It wasn't built on possession or urgency. It was built on recognition. Alara began noticing changes within herself. Old fears that once controlled her started dissolving. She no longer felt the need to shrink to fit into spaces that felt wrong. Her voice grew stronger, her intuition clearer. It was as if something invisible was gently reshaping her from within. One evening, overwhelmed by the intensity of it all, she confessed her fear. "What if I'm losing who I used to be?" Orion looked at her with deep compassion. "Maybe you're not losing anything," he said softly. "Maybe you're shedding what was never truly you." The words settled in her like seeds. Days turned into months. The world around them seemed increasingly chaotic, news filled with division, uncertainty, and noise. But inside their shared space, there was clarity. They spoke often about Gaia, the living spirit of Earth. about the idea that some souls choose to incarnate during times of transformation to anchor light and remembrance. "Do you ever feel," Elara asked one twilight evening, "that we're here for more than ordinary love?" Orion reached for her hand, not to hold tightly, but simply to connect. "Yes," he said. "I think our love is part of the transformation." She felt it then. Love was not just an emotion between two people. It was an energy, a frequency, a force that softened fear and awakened courage. The more they embraced their connection, the more their inner world shifted. Elara left her publishing job and began writing, channeling stories that seemed to flow through her rather than from her. Stories of awakening souls, of cosmic memory, of gentle rebirth. Orion completed his manuscript. It was titled The New Dawn Within. Together, they hosted small gatherings in nature, inviting others who felt the same stirring inside. They never claimed to have answers. They simply held space. And something remarkable